Good evening and welcome to your evening news bulletin with Television Tonga News. Making headlines, 2 Tonga College students sustains major injuries after surviving an attack from Tupou College or the law students last night. HMNZS Wellington anchors at Vuna Wharf in its first goodwill visit to Tonga. And an Australian orthopedic team carries out surgery operations on some patients at Vala Hospital. These and more stories, together with news from around the region, sports, world news, and the weather forecast later on in this bulletin. Now, for the news in details, I'm Kalolaine Tanglava with the news for tonight. A Tonga College student is in a critical condition at Vala Hospital after surviving an attack from Tupou College students last night. The attack targeted a home that Tonga College students occupied in Tofoa. Also, another Tonga College student sustains major injuries as well and currently at Vala Hospital. We're joined for Taifai Nga'a with that story.
The Tonga College student, believed to be in a critical condition, is currently reviving in hospital. Another student from the same school suffers major injuries as well. Speaking to media in regards of the incident, the Deputy Police Commissioner Unga Fa'awa named the attack a serious crime. The incident has been referred to the magistrate court. However, they will remain under the police custody until Monday next week. This is because the crimes committed is very serious. Meanwhile, the Police Commissioner Grant Office says this has been ongoing for years now and should be addressed nationally.
People of Tonga shouldn't look to the police to solve this issue. This is not a police issue. This is a Tongan issue. This is everybody's issue. It's an issue for the schools, it's an issue for the police, it's an issue for everybody, the parents. And we've now reached a point where we've got an individual critically injured in hospital because of rivalry between schools. And this isn't a game anymore. This is really very, very serious. So if people are thinking this is a problem the police can solve, they're wrong. This is a much bigger issue than something that the police can solve.
In the meantime, information from the Viola Hospital confirmed to Radio and Television Tonga News that other Tupou College students also suffered minor injuries, but they have been given medical treatment. The Deputy Police Commissioner says that police first received a report from Tupou College around 9 in the evening in regards of students missing from the compound. The Deputy Police Commissioner adds that police responded and patrolled to different areas in Tongatapu, including Tonga College compound. However, all the areas were cleared of anyone, but later received the report from the attack in Tofoa. This also led to the postponement of the final matches for the inter-college rugby competition that were to be held at the Teowhaiva Stadium. The acting Deputy Commissioner of Police says they've agreed with the chairperson of the Principals Association, Father Aisake Vaisima, to delay the finals as a precautions measure to prevent future damages. In the meantime, Father Vaisima told Radio Tonga News that the games have been postponed until next week, but the date and the time is yet to be confirmed. Today's finalists were among the Grade 1 levels up to the senior grades. For Television Tonga News, I'm Taifai Nga'a.
The families of the victim found dead from a house fire in Halaleva earlier this month have said their final goodbyes to that 19-year-old young man during his wake today. This comes after his body was identified after conducting the post-mortem before it was released to families. The results of the post-mortem confirmed that the deceased was Edli Hoko of Halaleva and he died from the fire that gutted a home in Halaleva. Meanwhile, the results from the inquest were carried out to the human bones discovered in Veitongo. However, the outcome of the post-mortem failed to identify the deceased. Meanwhile, further DNA tests for the human remains will be conducted in New Zealand. Speaking to Television Tonga News, the Deputy Police Commissioner Unga Fa'awa says the result given from the jurors who presided during the inquest stated that the deceased took his own life. The decision to finalize the reduction of the age of the elderly people from 75 years old to 70 and to be eligible for the social welfare scheme can only be authorized from government. The statement was made to Radio and Television Tonga News from the acting CEO of the National Retirement Benefits Fund and Social Welfare Scheme, Ikapote Tavalea, this morning. Let's take a look. The issue was raised after Radio and Television Tonga News understands from the parliamentary visits to local communities, around 99% of the concerns raised from the public was the need to reduce the age of the elderly people who receives the social welfare scheme from 75 to 70. The acting CEO of the National Retirement Benefits Fund and Social Welfare Scheme, Ekapote Tavalea, told Radio and Television Tonga News, if there are changes according to people's demand, it will mean that a huge number of people will be included in the social welfare scheme, which requires huge amount of money. The decision is from government and will listen to government for any further decision on this matter. If reduced to the age of 70, then more than 10,000 eligible elderly residents will be included in this scheme, compared to more than 2,000 receivers currently included in the welfare scheme. The acting CEO of the National Retirement Benefits Fund also says that more than 100,000 ba'ang is needed for this monthly payout of this benefit for the elderly citizens. The social welfare scheme first began in September 2012, with government only targeted to show the elderly citizens of Tonga its appreciation of their hard work for the country when they were strong. Elderly people from the age of 75 years old and onwards receives a payment of 65 ba'anga on a monthly basis. However, according to the last survey of the Ministry of Health in collaboration with the World Health Organization, WHO, it states that the average life expectancy for Tongan men ranges from 60 to 64 years old, and for women ranges from 65 to 69 years old. The acting CEO of the National Retirement Benefits Fund also called on the public on the importance of healthy lifestyles, as it will contribute to increase in the kingdom's life expectancy. There is a need to bring down the age of the elderly citizens eligible to receive the social welfare scheme from 75 to 70 years old. This was one of the main issues brought up during the parliamentary visit of the People's Representative to Parliament, who is also the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, Forestry, Fisheries and Food, Sengsta Saulala, last night to the people of Tokomololo.
There were other issues raised in last night's meeting, which included the complaint from the Tokomololo villagers over the high interest rate from the banks. During the meeting, the Member Parliament for Tongatapu 7, Sengsta Saulala, distributed some of his allowances to those who attended last night's meeting. Meanwhile, the share of Tokomololo from Government Assistance Fund to Parliament's constituency is 2,000 ba'anga. The residents of Tokomololo also raised concern on the need to renovate the government primary school in the village. Other issues raised include the demand to renew streetlights, provide assistance to educate women in the village, a request for fishing resources, and also for government to intervene and lower the cost of agricultural production. The market is not the problem. The problem that we are facing is the production. The way we plant the crops, we were hoping for government to step in and do something about the high cost of productions. Meanwhile, the people of Matalikufisi's village also attended last night's meeting, in which they requested for water supply system for their own village. Their request was approved by the representative. The Member Parliament for Tongatapu 7, Sengsta Saulala, also told the villagers that majority of the Member Parliaments do not speak or tell their constituencies the benefits they receive from the parliamentary visits. The money given to us by the government is 3,200 ba'anga. We donated 1,000 ba'anga to pay for the Ofadu Yamanaki Center's water supply. However, the allowance given to us from the government aims at helping the public. More than 70 people attended last night's meeting in Tokomololo out of the total of 485 registered voters for the village. For Television Tonga News.
Some of the public who were in need of orthopedic surgery are fortunate to have the assistance and help of a visiting medical team from Australia who are currently in Nuku'alofa. Meanwhile, the team will share their skills and experience with the staff at this particular area who are working at Viola Hospital. We'll join Sin Latu with that report.
The orthopedic team from Australia working together with the staff at the Viola Hospital towards a patient suffering from bone infection. Leading the Australian surgeon is Dr. Jeffrey Rosenberg. He says the purpose of their visit is to help those in need of bone and joint surgeries, in the meantime educate and share their knowledge and experience with their Tongan colleagues.
this is one of the best places, and I can say that because I've been to 4 different places in the Pacific, I've been to 2 different places in Africa, and this is one of the best places because you have good doctors and good nurses, and you have the skills and the equipment here that you can achieve a lot of good. Many other places, you can only offer advice.
He continues saying majority of the Pacific Islanders are still using traditional medicines which only worsen the patient's health. This is not the team's first visit to Tonga. One of the challenges they've faced during their visits, says Rosenberg, is knowing the right time to carry out a surgery on someone. Dr. Rosenberg says most of the surgeries they've conducted so far is to the backbone of the local patients.
Most of them have what's called canal stenosis, which is you get older, the space for the nerves gets smaller. There's one man who I operated on 7 years ago and did very well, and this year he's come back with the same but worse, and that's because the level above has developed the same problem. And now, today, less than 2 days after surgery, a man who was on crutches who kept falling over is standing upright and walking without any crutches.
This team's visit is part of a working relationship between the Viola Hospital and the Orthopedic Outreach Program. The team consists of 3 surgeons amongst other staff. For Television Tonga News, I'm Sinla Tu.
The main issues raised from the parliamentary visit to Kolofo'o, who comes under Tongatapu constituency too, relates to the need for villages to receive equal opportunities. As Kolofo'o was also concerned of the current progress of the development work of constructing a bridge from Mataika to Nukuleka. Kolofo'o also raised their concerns to their representative to Parliament, Semi Sisika. Sinla Tu again with that story.
The meeting was held last week on Wednesday evening at the Anglican Church with only one person from Kolofo'o, which was Ilavalo. One of the main issues brought up from Ilavalo was for the government to allow the continuation of constructing the bridge from Mataika leading to Nukuleka. We recommend to set up a rule if there is a natural resources found at sea or inland, the people should have part of it and they should benefit from it. We also recommend all vehicles that are using the road to collect a different fee to help fix the road. We also recommend to amend a new law for a traditional culture. She also emphasized the construction of the bridge from Mataika to Nukuleka should lead by Kolofo'o's Development Committee. The people of Kolofo'o also wanted, as voiced out by Ilavalo, to reconstruct the fountain in town as it was there for a reason. At the same time, they recommend a public toilet in Nukalofa, and finally, the safety of the public should be under the Ministry of Defence to avoid criminal activities. However, Ilavalo says that the answer from Tongatapu constituency number 3 representative to Parliament is way far different from what she has recommended. She says that they've tried to contact Tongatapu People's representative and confirmed every constituency should share the same amount of money from their own village council. He also emphasised that a full report from other villages on this constituency will be presented next week.
The HMNZS Wellington of the New Zealand's Navy is currently anchoring at the Vuna Wharf in its first goodwill visit to Nukalofa. We'll join Anna Silfalekaono with more on that story.
The offshore patrol vessel arrived in Nuku'alofa last Wednesday with 61 personnel on board, including crew members of the vessel and Navy officers of New Zealand Defence Force. Speaking to Television Tonga News, Lieutenant Commander Brisbane Logodui of Tonga Defence Force says Tonga's port is popular to New Zealand's Navy crew. HMNZS Wellington travel to Tonga is part of its route to New Zealand after a visit to the Solomon Islands. While in the kingdom, the Captain Lieutenant Commander Phil Rowe met the commander of Tonga's Defence Force, Brigadier General Tawaika Ota'atu. The vessel is free for public visitations tomorrow before returning to New Zealand next Wednesday. Anasia Falekano for Television Tonga News.
And a Tongan arts group known as the No o Whakataha from New Zealand are currently displaying various arts and designs at the Atenisi Institute. We'll join again Anna Silfalekaono with the details.
Part of the displays include varieties of art and designs, musical entertainment, and also the demonstrations of various talents that the members of the Tongan group has. Leading the No o Whakataha group is Felipe Tohi. Speaking to Radio and Television Tonga News, the executive director of the Atenisi Institute, Sisi Onohelo, says the idea for this exhibition was initiated when she was visiting New Zealand to attend a Tongan festival last year. The idea for the exhibition was raised when I met with Filipe Tohi last year, and they witnessed the Tonga's arc about Futahelu and the Atenisi Institute. The Not Whakataho group is currently working on a residence program to work together with the Institute, providing opportunities for those interested in arts. Meanwhile, a member from the Not Whakataho group, Dagmar Dayak, told Television Tonga News she is happy to visit Tonga.
Filipe Tohi is one of our, he's sort of our elder of our group, and he met with Sisi Ono Helo in, at the Madala Festival, and they got talking, and Filipe really was touched by what was happening here at Atenisi. We had all watched Tongan Arc, the documentary, so we had an understanding of some of the history of Atenisi, but he really wanted to impress upon us that there would be an opportunity for us to perhaps go.
The Not Whakataho group will depart Tonga next week. Meanwhile, a team from the Tangata Pasifika program from New Zealand is currently in Tonga to produce a television program about the Not Whakataho's visit to Tonga. Anasio Falegano for Television Tonga News.
That's the local scene. Stay watching for more news from the Pacific. The Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd is expected to make an announcement of a revamped asylum seeker strategy soon. And as ABC's Karen Benny reports, once the Prime Minister announces his new strategy, it's believed that Mr. Rudd will switch his focus to an election date.
The Prime Minister has flagged that this is one of the three things that he wants to get out of the way and make changes on before heading to an election. So carbon tax, which has been looked after, the asylum seeker debate, which we're expecting an announcement either today, maybe over the weekend, maybe early next week, and also the Labor caucus changes, the Labor Party reforms, I should say, which will be discussed at a Labor caucus meeting on Monday. So those are the three things the Prime Minister wants to tick off. On asylum, he wants a threefold approach to that, national, regional and global effort. So you would think that this is part of some sort of regional approach that the Prime Minister is looking to announce when he does make that announcement. But as for when the actual announcement will be, the Prime Minister's office has told us it's at this stage it's not going to be today, but that could change, of course.
That's the regional news. Coming up next is the latest news in sports with Pierre Ollier.
In sport, the people of Ewa are fortunate to receive sports gears and equipment from the Australian government through the Australian Sports Commission, estimated at 10,000 per anga. Ewa's technical advisor, Dr. Daniela Fulsmalo, he told Radio and Television Tongan Sports News this morning how fortunate they were to receive this assistance. He says this will be distributed towards the primary schools in the island to build a better foundation for a healthier population in Ewa. The sporting equipment will not only be used by the children, but it will also be useful to the adults. Meantime, the chairman of Ewa's Sports Council, Tufios Finau, says this will boost young talented athletes in Ewa. The committee hopes that the assistance be shipped to the island as soon as possible. Brumbies veteran Clyde Rathbone has been promoted to the starting side at the expense of Wallabies winger Joe Domane for the Super Rugby qualifying final against the Cheetahs on Sunday. Rathbone's shock inclusion polishes and solid Super Rugby comeback year for the 31-year-old who retired in 2009 after a series of injuries. Coach Jake White has included the 26-gapped Wallaby for his finals experience as he and flanker George Smith were part of the Brumbies 2004 Super Rugby title-winning team. Yet the move will still leave many scratching their heads. Domane is shifting to the bench, coming just a fortnight after playing his second game against the British and Irish Lions for the Wallabies. And despite Rathbone starting in the first 3 games of the season, he has since played just 94 minutes over 13 rounds of the Super Rugby. Rathbone added he had no idea his comeback season would plan out so well at the start of the year. He's gotten all the attention on